I think I may have a ghost child in my home. It's something as recent as last year. It appears to be a little high-energy white human, like Fuzzy, being for a lack of better description. It would zip through and run around. Before I would catch glimpses of it, it would chase behind my sister. It'll come and go. Some months it would be really quiet, but this month has been a lot of high energy. I get a lot of these visits sometimes from other spirits. They are not known familiars to me. I notice more often they tend to visit when someone in my home is not emotionally well or physically sick. I was sick last week with a really bad cold, and as I was falling asleep, I saw a little spirit skip into my room, skipping across the foot of my bed. I didn't give it much attention, so I closed my eyes for a few moments and woke up to the tugging of my hand. Eyes opened, I could see a little spirit of what seemed like a boy with no face jumping to reach for my hand, sometimes tugging it because it's too small to reach the top of my bed, like he wanted to pull me down off. I waved at him, like I didn't want to go with him, or, no, let me sleep. I can't remember, but I woke up the next morning still really sick, and I remembered that happened, and it sort of freaked me out. My house is new construction from 2005. No previous owners, just nature before that. Can random spirits just show up? Or are they like see you and be like, or do they follow you home? I don't know. I don't see familiars other than in my dreams. And I haven't had any kids or lost any. It's just kind of weird. Alright, before I begin with this post, I'm a skeptic. I don't believe in the supernatural, the afterlife, etc. But I have a keen interest in it. I enjoy watching videos, seeing stories, hearing other people's thoughts on it, and so on. And apparently, what's happened to me in the recent past is not, according to my friends, all their close relatives normal. I'm in my teens, living with my parents currently. As far as I'm aware, they have not had any weird or unexplainable events. The first incident was mid-August 2022. It was around 3 in the morning, maybe later, when I'm sleeping. Lights off. Any active TV remotes are set on my bedside dresser, and I am nearly asleep. Then my TV turns on. It's an empty channel, creating that noisy static you hear as a cheap jump scare in a horror movie. So I think it has to be a malfunction. Shouldn't be anything major. Swap the HDMI channel and turn it off. I've never, since that happened in August, seen my TV do that again. But I've had some other strange things happen. Not quite an incident, but despite having no trees directly around my room or close enough to reach my window, if I'm watching something that involves the supernatural, specifically ghost hunting, I'll hear an eerie tapping on my window that fades away over time. There's not many trees, and after I told my friends about that and the TV malfunctioning, it never happened again. The second incident was September 5th of 2022. It's 4 in the morning. I'm minding my own business, watching Ghost Files and other stories from one of Ireland's most haunted prisons, and my LED lights start to change colors. Really irregular, non-flash, fade ones. I find this weird. Use the remote to try turning it off, but it doesn't work. I decide, hey, whatever, and just get up. As I'm walking towards the plug, the lights go haywire. Rapid color changing for what I'd say was not even a full second, then shorts out. They were not overheated, and were relatively new, and now they won't turn on. My other lights are far older. I've had them since the beginning of 2020, and I've had 0 problems. After that night in September, I told my friends. They didn't believe me at first, thought I was joking, only after they realized it wasn't a joke. Did they beg me to tell someone or have my family call a priest? Is this just an overreaction? or spirit. Edit. I never believed there was a spirit, but my friends did. And this post was a second opinion, due that they may stop hounding me about it. Thank you for your comments. I usually don't respond, but yes, I think you have a prankster spirit messing with you because they know that you are a skeptic. If you don't get any bad vibes from it, I wouldn't worry about it. I wouldn't let it bother you. Just outwardly, you might think it's weird or funny, but just say out loud, hey, can you please stop messing with me? If anyone's there, we can coexist. If it's really bothering you, that's what you can, kind of say to them. But okay, all right, bye.
They say that 99% of the internet is not accessible to traditional browsers. The world that lives beneath that which we see when we visit the dark web contains things which defy normal understanding. It has become a breeding ground to all of man's most preserved and dark fantasies. It's a place where chaos reigns supreme. My mother is not an extremely savvy internet user. In fact, most of the time, she has little to no idea what she is doing on there. If she is on someone else's YouTube account or Gmail, she often does what she's trying to do without paying attention to whose credentials she is using. Can you blame her though? Her generation didn't grow up with computers. They are severely disadvantaged when it comes to that kind of stuff. I, on the other hand, pride myself on being knowledgeable about computers and the internet. I don't know how I would live my life without the opportunities it affords me. One could easily assume then that I'd be someone who would take an interest in the dark web. And believe me, it's not for the faint of heart. Now the thing is that I am very careful with what I do. I use a great VPN service and I know what I can and can't click in order not to expose my IP address to anyone. After years of doing this though, I did however become a bit too careless, and it just so happened that the time I did, I was on my mom's computer. I was hanging with my family during the holiday, and I got into an argument with my little brother, Tommy, about a certain listing that I had seen on a dark net market search. He's always been a bit of a sheltered kid, considering he has a cleft lip and my parents baby him like a toddler. So, I figured it was my responsibility to show him some of the real world every once in a while. I had told him about this listing for a clown that you could hire for birthday parties that was for some reason being advertised on the dark web, and he of course didn't believe me. So I showed him the listing and we read about how the clown would provide your party with an exceptional experience, one that you would likely never forget. Considering my knowledge of the dark web, I was pretty sure it was not an experience you would want to remember. After I showed him, I got distracted and went about my business doing other things. Somehow though, I left my browser window open on my mom's computer. This was hands down the worst, most careless slip-up of my life. One that I will likely never live down. After I was done on there, she used the laptop and thinking that the clown was something my little brother wanted to do for his birthday, she went ahead and paid for him to come visit the house. After I found out what she had done, we tried to cancel it. But I guess it didn't work because that weekend, a clown car pulled up out front of our house for Tommy's birthday. Out of the car stepped an old man in traditional clown makeup with these pale, bluish white eyes like those of a blind person. Yet, he seemed to be able to walk up the driveway totally fine. My mom was very freaked out and had my dad go meet him in the driveway. When my dad approached him, he tried to shake his hand, but instead the clown just immediately pulled out 3 juggling balls and started tossing them up effortlessly. My dad stared at him for a moment in awe, then began to guide him around the side yard into the back, where the rest of the party guests were. I was definitely a bit worried, so I went to the backyard and the clown was already setting up for a magic show. The guy looked freaky as hell, but everyone in the crowd seemed okay with it, so I suppose I was being too judgmental and should just let him do his show. Plus, he had a name tag on that said Noisy, and considering he hadn't said a word the whole time, I thought that was pretty funny. For the first trick, Noisy took a quarter out and he pretended like it disappeared in his hand. Then he reached around the back of his head and pulled the quarter out from behind his ear. It was a pretty basic trick, but then he kept going with it. He pulled out a quarter after quarter from behind his ear until there was a pile of change at least a few inches high on the ground beside him. Everyone in the yard seemed impressed when they saw this. It really was an incredible trick. Then he picked up the pile of change off the ground and put it in his shirt. Then he held the shirt up with his 2 fingers and launched the coins up into the air. Only nothing flew out. The change had totally disappeared, and in its place, a bunny rabbit popped out. The crowd really got into this. A few of them even got up and started putting money into the tip jar. Then Noisy extended his hand out and pointed to Tommy. Tommy smiled, excited to have been acknowledged, and stepped up. Noisy then pulled out one of those huge bubble-making wands and had Tommy stand in the round tray of soap on the ground. Noisy then lowered the wand over Tommy and lifted it back up quickly, covering him in a gigantic bubble. This was not an ordinary bubble though. It would not pop no matter what. Tommy would hit the side of it and it wouldn't break. Everyone in the audience stared at this, speechless. Clearly, they were watching something that wasn't possible occurring before their eyes. After a few seconds of being trapped inside, Tommy started to freak out and thrash against the side of the bubble. He began screaming and crying, panicking. "Hey, let him out!" my dad yelled as he started approaching the clown. Noisy then looked over at him and put his finger on his lips, shushing him. He then lifted the wand up above my brother's head and quickly brought it over him. The bubble instantly disappeared, and so did Tommy. Frantic, my dad charged towards Noisy, but just before he could get to him, the clown brought the bubble wand down over himself and vanished as well. My dad screamed frantically, looking around for the two of them. Realizing the gravity of the situation, the crowd began to stand up and try to help my dad look for them. Then we heard a car start up in the driveway. Several of us sprinted to the front yard and saw the clown car pulling out and taking off down the street. My dad and I, along with several others, got into our cars and peeled out, chasing after him. Then the clown car turned a corner, and by the time we got there, it had vanished. Upon the realization that we had lost him, my dad immediately broke down in tears, screaming and pounding on the steering wheel. I had never seen him get like that before, and I knew it was all my fault. The following weeks were some of the worst I had ever experienced. Constant contact with the police and interviews, where everyone was relentlessly asking me about why I was on the dark web and what I knew about my little brother's disappearance. I honestly feel like I was lucky they didn't pin the entire thing on me and just close the case. I didn't stop going on the dark web though. In fact, I started using it more. I knew that if there was any way I was going to find my brother's kidnapper, it wasn't going to be using the old-fashioned police detective model. I had to track Noisy down once he decided to stalk again. So I created various fake identities on numerous darknet markets and made posting after posting for birthday party clowns to come perform at my son's party. Then finally, after several weeks of doing this, I got a response. Only it wasn't from Noisy. It was from another old man dressed as a clown who included a picture of himself in the posting with his response. The weirdest thing was though, the man had a cleft lip and looked just like my little brother, only he had aged at least 50 years. I was really freaked out by this and had to know more, but after I posted several times for him to meet me, I think he could tell I was trying to trick him because he would never show up. I am going to continue to look for him as long as I can, but I think he knows it's me, and for some reason, he doesn't want to be found.